Why don't you walk us through your discography this far? You released an EP in 2015.
We did.
And your first studio album in 2017.
I can take it.
Tell us a little bit about these.
So the first one here, I can't tell which direction that would be. I guess
It's the Water's Edge.
left. No, left, right. But it's my right, your left, from the screen. This was our first recording ever together as a band and as a duo, and it's some songs we both wrote together and some earlier songs that I brought to the album, and it was, I would say, just a really fun exploratory experience, and I think that we were both really proud of that EP when it came out, and that was kind of our starting point for March to May in a sense, and then a couple of years later we came out with Through the Night, our first full-length album, and it was just a wonderful evolution, I think, of the first EP that we had.
Yeah, I think that it's been interesting tackling each of these recording projects. So Water's Edge, Through the Night, and now What I Was and More. I definitely hear that sort of sonic evolution from one project to the next. Some of that is time, some of that is experience, in the sense that like Darren and I really weren't very experienced as like band-oriented musicians when we started March to May, and so it's just been this massive learning process, and we've evolved quite a lot with each project. But I also think that they're interesting kind of snapshots of different places, like where we're at in our lives. And I think that's part of the beauty of like being able to do this for as long as we have, and hopefully as long as we will. Because I think that our style does sort of change, but it mostly deepens. Like I think we get better at the things that we're good at, and more, I think, like wide ranging, in the sense of being able to take those parts that are kind of the core of our sound and really cast a wide net to sort of encompass different parts of what that might mean. That was a very vague answer, but listen to the new album. It's great.
Okay. Would you say, it sounds like the EP was an amalgamation of different things, but was there like an overall theme for Through the Night?
Yeah. I would definitely say, I mean, I think you have a better, you're better describing like the actual themes of these albums, but I think there's a pretty consistent theme to it. Yeah.
So I think the title is actually nod to that for all of them. So the Water's Edge, was kind of like that first step out, like you're sort of standing at the edge of something, and I think the songs on that kind of reflect that. There was a sense of learning, and a sense of sort of like putting our first foot out there. Yeah. Through the Night came out in a time that was, I think, very professionally and personally challenging for Darren and me. We were changing a lot and growing and like going through a lot. And Through the Night had this sort of feeling of like, I mean, coming through the night sort of to dawn, but also this sort of coming together feeling. And a lot of the songs in it, I think, are very, very well crafted and very just like pretty. They're very good at their core, and I like that. They're very clean. And this sort of sense of unity and harmony.
Yeah. No, sorry. Like I was like looking at all the titles, like as you were saying that too, and I feel like in addition to that like there's like this kind of like almost like a darkness to it as well, for sure. Which, I mean, again, the title Through the Night of the album, I think kind of captures some of that. But there's like this kind of,
I wouldn't say darkness. I'd say there's a somber quality to some of them.
I would say that's somewhat synonymous, darkness and somber. But yeah, like I mean, we're using different words, but I would say that like when I say darkness, I mean, yeah, somber, melancholic. Like there's something kind of heavier, darker, minor key, like that kind of feeling to it. For most of the songs on there, actually. Yeah.
What I Was and More, so this new album, I think, takes that a little bit further too. Like this new album, like there's a little bit more confidence in it. I think we're coming into our own skin a little bit more. And that has given us the freedom to write and perform in ways that I think, like, we weren't very risky in Through the Night. And I think that I wouldn't say that we're like extremely risky in What I Was and More, but we're definitely sort of taking a stand with a little bit more confidence. We're moving in our own skin a little bit more, more securely and taking more risks with that. But it's also, so I've thought about What I Was and More as sort of encompassing a lot of like creative destruction. It's sort of, if Through the Night was sort of bringing everything together, What I Was and More is kind of like pulling it apart and looking at the different pieces and sort of assessing that from I guess a little bit more of a place of strength. So I would actually say, like, I think What I Was and More has some darkness in it.
Oh, it does. It does, for sure.
Through the Night, it's more, I feel like it's more like, it's a softer darkness.
Somber and melancholic, I guess, maybe through the night. No, I agree. I mean, I feel like What I Was and More definitely has a darkness to it, but it also has a lightness to it. One of the things we did when we were actually going through our song list is not just deciding which songs were going to be on it, but also trying to put words to every single song, you know, like the feeling that kind of came from it. Not only was there kind of like, you know, maybe darkness and anger and sadness, but there was also like, you know, triumphant and joyful and, you know, some of these kinds of characteristics. So it has, I think, you know, much more of a kind of combination like between those two, you know, kind of different sides of the emotional spectrum comparatively. Yeah.
Would you say the majority of your songs are in a minor key?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I look down through,
we have a couple of like more major, more like happier songs. It's funny. We say this a lot in our live shows as kind of a joke. But we have a song that we may or may not be playing later. But that when we first wrote it was called a Happy Love Song because it was the only one of its kind. Like there was nothing to confuse it with. So yeah, I think
3 songs out of 17.
Yeah, we definitely have a more melancholic tendency. So take that for what it is.
But melancholic doesn't have to also mean depressing or like I think people have, you know, different associations with melancholic, but melancholic can also be very inspiring and beautiful and, you know, kind of introspective. And I think that's what a lot of our music feels like too. It's not just, you know, it can be uplifting in a different kind of way, right? So I think that's one thing, you know, looking at the minor versus major. Yes, we have a lot of the majority are minor, you know, the minor key. But I think a lot of these songs have, you know, this kind of more somber, melancholic, introspective feel to it, but they're also very uplifting and inspiring, like in terms of what people, when they're listening to them, actually walk away with. So,
okay. And what would you say has been the hardest song to record this far? And that could be technically or emotionally.
That's a good question, Robbie.
The Way We Love.
That was hard technically. I think it was surprising. We thought, oh, that song's going to be easy.
But that's from the new album.
Yeah, it's the last song in the new album, and it's got kind of a syncopation in it, particularly in the piano that carries through the entire song and was actually extremely, extremely difficult to get right in the studio.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
that was challenging.
I mean, I think there's some other songs that, like, you know, that we definitely felt, you know, that were more technically challenging, you know, from like a perspective of, you know, what we were playing in the notes and stuff. But The Way We Love was so simplistic in terms of playing it, like in terms of like the notes and the key progression and the chord progressions. But it was really hard to get the right feel and to play it like in the right way.
I think that is a truism that, like, I think sometimes the simpler a song seems, the more deceptive it is to record because you don't have sort of a lot else going on that can kind of like buoy things.
Yeah. I mean, there were other songs that were more vocally challenging and, you know, maybe instrumentally challenging, but yeah, that was one of the hardest.
Okay. Now, in the AV world, there's a saying that there's no such thing as finished projects, only abandoned ones. If there's one song that you feel like you wish you could go back and change something about it, what would that be?
Georgia.
Yeah.
I'd speed up Georgia.
I think we speed up. I think we would love to record it with our current band.
Yeah.
Granted, Dave, our drummer, did play on that song and he played wonderfully. But I think the recording and the mastering and the mixing, the mastering, I think we'd love to do that again.
Yeah.
Doesn't Georgia, it has, the tempo changes, right?
It does. So, you know, the funny thing was that we've done this one other time that I'm remembering right now. Occasionally, like, it does make sense to like have a moment in the song that you sort of tweak the tempo. But for Georgia, like I think it was, so this is where I come and say, I'm like, oh my gosh, we've learned so much and we've grown so much. I think it was sort of like inexperience and indecision. We couldn't really like, the right tempo felt too fast in studio, and so we actually ended up starting at a slow tempo, and then there's this part at the end where we just like kept speeding up like a runaway horse, and so we actually ended up sort of like gradually increasing the speed of the click track, and so like the actual tempo of the song, and in retrospect, looking back now, I'm like, we should have just started it faster. So
All right.
Angst. That's one of our favorite songs, by the way. Like, we love playing that song, and I think that's just more sort of feeling like, did we land the recording? No.